Now we've modeled our character, we've unwrapped the UVs, so let's get texturing. Now before we can actually start texturing, we need to assign a material to our model. All of our pieces are going to share a single material. So I'm going to select the torso first and go to my materials tab and select new, call this texture. Previously we went to the UV editing tab up here. This time we're going to go to the shading tab. And to actually paint or draw a texture, we need an image. In this area, I'm going to press Shift A and it's going to bring up a menu. And I'm going to go to texture and select image texture. Now this is just a placeholder. There is no image yet. To create an image, we have to say new. I'm going to call this and Beth, because that's our character name, texture, and I'm going to set the texture to 512. For this first model, we're sort of going for a PlayStation 1 type thing, so we're going for a smaller texture map size. Then we need to plug this into the surface over here. So I'm going to remove this one here, and I'm going to click on this yellow dot and drag it into the surface over here. Okay, so that is the texture. Right now there's nothing on it, that's why it's black. And we also want this texture to be on all of our different parts. So what I'm going to do is select all the pieces except the torso. Then I'll select the torso last so that it has a yellow highlight. It's my active object. And then under materials, I'm going to come to this menu, little menu here. You can see there's a plus or a minus to add or remove slots. And then there's an arrow. I'm going to select this arrow and say copy material to selected. Now the same material is on all of my pieces, but there are no details. Okay, to actually start painting some details, we need to go to the texture paint space. So up here we're in the shading workspace. We can just go right next to it and go to the texture paint workspace, which will show us, similar to our UVs, it will show us our UV map and our model. And I need to add one more thing before we start, and I'd like to add in a reference. So I'll go to object mode first. I'm going to press Shift A, go to image, select reference, and add in the color concept of our character. Okay, now I can use that to see what colors I'm going to be adding to the character. Then I'm going to select my torso again, go under the object mode menu and select texture paint. And in the case of the torso, it's basically going to be the shirt, so I'm going to paint the whole area pink. So first I'm going to select this fill option, then I'm going to come to my brush settings or my paint settings on this side, my tool settings. I'm going to select this black bar, and then it will show me a color wheel and properties, and I want to use the eyedropper icon, and I'm going to eyedrop the pink of the shirt. We can either use this dot or the pink of the shirt itself. Now we have pink and we're using the fill tool, and I'm just going to click. Since all the parts are separated, the fill will only act, or the brush will only act on the element or the model part that we've selected. Okay, that's a good starting point. I'm going to go around and add a basic fill to each of my pieces. So I'm going to go to object mode, and I'm going to select the hips. I'm going to change from object mode to texture paint using the fill tool. This is going to basically be the shorts. So I'm going to click on this color again, select the eyedropper tool, sample a color and fill that in. Then I'm going to go to object mode, select the hair, go to texture paint. So with the hair selected and in texture paint, I'll need to change my color. So I'll select my color, select the eyedropper tool and select the yellow for the hair, and I'll fill in the hair. Back to object mode. Okay, now the rest is basically all going to be the skin except for the shoes, which are going to be the boots. So select the upper arm, go to texture paint. I'm going to sample skin color and paint. I'm going to go to object mode, select the forearms, texture paint and fill. Go to object mode, select the hands, go to texture paint and fill. Go to object mode, select the neck, go to texture paint and fill. I'm going to change back to object mode, select the head, go to texture paint and fill. Change back to object mode, select the upper legs, go to texture paint and fill. Back to object mode, select the legs part of the leg, texture paint and fill. Object mode and select the feet, go to texture paint and don't fill because I need to change color first. So the boots are a brown color. I need to change my color, use the eyedropper tool and sample a brown, and then I can fill the shoes. Okay, now while we have a base color, that's not really giving us all the detail of our character. So now we're going to need to do a little bit more fine-tuned brushwork. To do that, we are going to select each piece once more and paint in a little bit of extra detail. So let's start with the legs, because if we look at our reference here, our character is not quite wearing booty shorts. She has shorts sleeves coming onto the leg, and we need to indicate that. So I'm going to go to object mode, select my upper leg and go to texture paint, and this time I'm going to change my tool from fill to brush. Now just a bit of a disclaimer, I am using a drawing tablet to do this. It's perfectly possible to do this with a mouse, but I do find it a bit easier to use a drawing tablet for this kind of thing. So I need to get back to this color here, so I'm going to go to color, use the eyedropper tool, and now that will allow me to paint, but my brush is a little bit too big. To change your brush size, just see here, you can do the following. You can press the F key and that will allow you to grow and shrink your brush until you click, or you can use the bracket keys on your keyboard to grow and shrink the brush size. The trunks of the shorts go about until there. I'm also going to go into isolation mode. I'm going to fill everything top in with this. Okay, that gives us our shorts. Okay, then I'm going to go back into object mode and I'll select the torso, which is now clearly becoming the shirt, and go into texture paint, make sure I have my brush selected. So I can either do this on both the hips and the shirt, but I think this line here is a good sort of guide and midpoint that can act as the belt for us. So I'm actually going to go to edit mode and face select, and I'm going to select all these faces in the middle, and this is going to become the belt. Then from edit mode I'm going to change to texture paint. Before I do anything, I'm going to select this little icon here, which means I can only paint on the faces I selected while in edit mode. Then I'm going to go to fill tool instead of using my brush, and I'm going to sample the belt color from this image and fill in that space. Although it's not perfect, there's a little bit of issues happening there. I'm going to switch off the masking or only paint selected, which is paint mask, and switch to my brush tool. Make sure I have the same color active, and I'm going to go into isolation mode. So I want to, oh dear. Now for this piece, the torso, the head and the hips, I want to make sure my X symmetry is on when I paint, so that whatever I paint on one side will also happen on the other side. We don't need to do that for the limbs since they share the same UVs, so whatever you do on one will automatically happen on the other. Oopsie daisy, there's a mistake. Okay. Okay. Before I continue, I don't like these jagged edges, so I'm going to use this tool here, the blur tool, and just try and smooth that out a little bit. It's creating a blur, but I'd rather have that than the jagged edges. So yeah, I think that's it then for the torso. Almost. Because if I go out of isolation mode and I look at my character, she does have a belt buckle. So I can also add that now. I'm going to go back to my brush tool and then sample this color. And I'm going to paint that in here. And then make it a little bit lighter of a color, just to add an extra bit of detail. Okay, you can see my UVs are taking on all the colors. I need to add some sleeves from the shirt onto the arm. So I'm going to select the upper arm, go from object mode to texture paint, make sure my brush is selected. Then I'm going to sample the color that we already used on the shirt, and I'm also going to go into isolation mode so I can see the top and sides. Now I'm going to paint in the sleeves. Oops. Okay. I'm going to exit isolation mode. Okay, I want the sleeves to be a little bit longer. So about there. Okay. Right. Happy with that, and then just same as with the belt, I'll use the blur tool. Get just a little bit of an eased transition. Okay. Then that'll be the sleeves. Okay, now let's get into some bigger details. So with the legs, you see our boots, she's not just wearing a shoe, she's wearing boots going up to her calf. So we need to indicate that with the texture. So I'm gonna select the lower legs, go to texture paint, sample the color from the boot, and paint in where the boot should be. Okay. Now with that, that's pretty good. I want to add a little bit of extra detail, so I'm going to add some socks. I'm not going to have her socks just poking out at the top here, so I'm sampling a white color, and I'm just going to paint a line of white here at the top. And then, just to sell that last bit of detail, I'm going to add a blue line as part of the sock. Okay, then before I go on, I'm going to sample the white again. And I'm also going to draw on some laces onto the boots. Then I'll go to object mode, select my feet, go to texture paint, continue painting on the laces over here. I've added a bit of extra white there, let me just fix that. No, okay, have the sample from over here. Okay, before I go any further, it's important to save your work, so I'm gonna come to my UV map side, and you'll see there's a little star next to image telling us that we have not saved our image yet. I'm gonna say click on the image and then save as, and it'll give me the name, so it'll be the Annabeth texture. I'm gonna go to object mode, see what is next, what else do I need for detail. I think our pants need a little bit of detail, the shirt needs a bit of detail, and the face, because right now she looks like she's bald with a yellow bun. So let's look at detailing the head a little bit. I'll select the head, go from object mode to texture paint, and I think I'll paint in the hair first. So I'm going to sample the yellow from the hair, and this is how I will paint the head. She has sort of, if we look at the reference, sort of a mid-path starting from the middle of the head going around, so like that. Oops. Have to make sure my X symmetry is on. I think like that will work. First I'll just paint in the top of the head. Like this, she might have a buzz cut. And I'm also going to draw in her ear. Her hair is growing behind her ear. Now I'll go to isolation mode and paint in the rest of the hair. Okay, here we go. I'm happy with that for the hairline. Then I think we should see where her eyes and mouth are gonna be. Now I have prepared some preset graphics of the eyes, eyebrows, mouth and nose that we will add on in an imaging software, but for now we're going to use just black to draw in a guide for ourselves, so that when we use the image editing software, we have a guide of more or less where the eyes and eyebrows should be placed. So that'll be my eyebrows. My eyes will be over here. Some nose details can be over here. And the mouth will be over here, more or less. It's very simple, but that'll do for now. Okay, then on that details node, we need to add a bit of detail on the hands, the pants, the shirt. And then we can finish off with the face in an external software. Okay. I'm going to sample the skin tone and then make it a slightly darker color. And from there, I think let's do the hands first. And select the hands, go to texture paint. And basically a hand is in a fist. So her thumb will be over here. And her fingers will be 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers coming together. Like so. You can also give her gloves if you'd rather have gloves on your character. Just save my image again. Okay. I'm gonna go to the hips, then to texture paint. Going to sample the pants color and make it a little bit darker, and then draw on some details. Oops, that's not the hips, that's the pants, I mean the leg. So first, before I turn on my symmetry, I want to draw a line down the middle. Then I'll activate my X symmetry, give her some pockets, back pockets on pants. Have her pants have a seam line going down the side and some pockets. Then turn off symmetry again. Most pants or shorts have this fly area, and then outside of that, if we look at the reference, we can put some creases around as well. So with the X symmetry back on, okay, I'm gonna save my image. I'm gonna go to object mode, select the upper leg, and go to texture paint. With that same color still active, I'm gonna add some details on the trouser trunks. Okay. Let's say that's more or less it for the pants. I'm gonna save my image. I'm gonna go to object mode. I'm going to select my torso and add a bit of detail to my shirt. So to texture paint, first I want to give her sort of a neckline. So I'm gonna sample the skin tone again and just start drawing in a neckline for the shirt. And I'll use the blur tool to smooth it out a little bit. Okay. Then with that, just give me a second. I'm going to sample shirt color, make it a little bit darker, and add some details to the body. I mean, see, okay, not that dark. Okay, she's an adventurer, she does rock climbing and all sorts of things, so I think she needs to have a good core strength. So I'm going to turn off my symmetry and paint in a little bit of some rock hard abs. And also some of the shirt's creases and folds. I'm going to activate my symmetry again because I need the shading right here. I'm going to turn off symmetry again. Okay, with this model, I'm not doing the button-up shirt, we're just doing a pink sort of sporty shirt, but I would like to add a flower. So I think I'll add a flower in the middle. I'm going to sample the yellow from the hair and make that the starting point of my flower. Then I need to sample the white to make the flower petals. It's a bit tricky because it seems like my UV is actually a bit squished out. It's not as pretty as I'd like it, but it's okay. Okay, so let's save this texture. And now we're going to add the graphics for the face in an image editing software. So you can use any kind of one you want: Photoshop, Affinity Photo, Krita. For this tutorial I'm going to use Photopea or Photopea. It's an online browser-based Photoshop like software.